Hello and welcome to How to Protect Yourself from Users and Abusers. Whether you're single, you're currently seeing someone, or you're even in a relationship or marriage, you might be in a situation where you're going to run into people that want to be abusive or that want to use you. And it's very important that you know how to do something in that situation so that you don't end up getting taken advantage of or hurt or treated poorly. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Hello, my name is Matthew Coast, and welcome. I'm here with my great friend and mentor, Marcy Newman, who is a spiritual mentor. She's been helping people heal and uh, deal with their traumas and step into their power for a very
Mhm.
long time. And so I'm very excited to have this conversation with you today, Marcy.
Thank you so much, Matt. I'm so excited to be here as always and excited to, really tap into our audience and see what it is that they need and like where their heart is. How can we connect?
Cool. And so if you're watching this right now with us, go ahead and say hi. Tell us where in the world you're watching this from. It's cool to see women from all over the world watching these videos. So let's get started here and just talk a little bit about like what needs to happen. So let's say that a woman, actually, you know what? Let's start with this because it keeps popping up in my mind, and
Okay.
I'd love to kind of talk to you a little bit about this. And there's this big thing. It's actually really popular. And it's this idea of boundaries, right? People talk about it. There's best-selling books about boundaries. There's just all kinds of literature. Lots of people talking about it. And I know you have an interesting kind of viewpoint on boundaries. And when you're talking about dealing with people that are abusive or people that are going to use you, this topic of boundaries comes up. And so, can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts around boundaries and how to use them, if you use them, and what somebody should do, in your opinion?
So, first off, Matt, you are jumping right in. It's such a huge subject, but it's one that literally is on everyone's mind, particularly because, just as you said, in the past, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years or so, it's like boundaries getting pounded into us, and how important they are. And you're right, I have a completely different perspective on it. And it fits so perfectly with the topic that we're talking about in terms of protection. So let's look at it from a physical sense, right? So if someone is attacking you, you need to protect yourself. If you are in any way going to be injured, you must protect yourself. But when it comes to relationship, I want to invite everyone to start to just sort of raise themselves up a little bit and think about themselves more as energy rather than just these physical human bodies. As a human, we have almost always this fear, right? That we need to protect the body. And that's what I was saying. If you feel that, then by all means, protect yourself. However, as an energy being, what a boundary does is it causes you to contract your energy. Now, when you contract your energy, I mean, think about being this expansive egg of energy, right? And just like your heartbeat, it naturally contracts and expands, contracts and expands. Well, if you are setting these unpenetrable boundaries, your energy field stays in contraction. When that happens, not only are you keeping that person or situation out, but you keep yourself in. And this is where we start then to create lives literally that are feeding the energy of I need to be afraid of the whole world. The world is passing me by. There's something wrong with me. I'm not worthy. I'm not valuable. What happens, it goes into the energy. The ego actually takes us into this downward spiral, because anytime that we are contracted, we are neither giving nor receiving love. And giving and receiving love is not only the essence of who we are, but it's our true nature. It's how we're meant to be in the world. It's why you're here right now. You want to know, how can I give and receive love more? How can I find more fulfillment in my loving relationships? How can I attract to me a lover, right, that's going to respect me and honor me and really be supportive of me and my relationship? You cannot achieve that in a contracted state. It's impossible. And so it's actually, I see boundaries under those circumstances, excuse me, self-sabotaging. The most important thing is that we are constantly clearing our energy field so that love can go in and come out, just like our blood, just like our breath. Everything goes in and comes out, goes in and comes out. And that's how we stay stable. So you might be saying, well, what happens then? What do I do if somebody has offended me or hurt my feelings or any of that? And, I need to set a boundary so they never do it again. That boundary is not going to prevent them from doing or trying to do it again. The only thing that prevents that is by you actually increasing your ability to let love in and let love out. Because as we are raising our vibration, what happens, and this is absolutely miraculous, is that the people who are not of that vibration, who might be the ones who are manipulating you or hurting you or abusing you, they'll fall away, because you have shifted yourself into a completely different, you might say, world. And that's a place where you don't need boundaries. You just need to understand your true nature, how your energy and your energy field is affected by what you do, and how to achieve what it is that you're looking for can only happen in a higher vibrational frequency. Can't be created where you are. You saw the results of trying to do that.
Okay. So
I told you, you really jumped off into
no, it's really interesting hearing you talk about this, and you're talking about kind of this contracted state versus kind of letting love flow through and pass through. If we're getting a little bit more like into the specifics, like let's take that down a little bit here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Just because I'd like to kind of understand it a little bit
Sure.
better. So let's say that a woman's in a situation where a guy is doing something that or even a woman is doing something that she feels is inappropriate, or that maybe makes her feel bad, or is kind of crossing what she feels is acceptable behavior around her. How does she respond to this? Like, what does she do exactly that makes sure that she's keeping herself open and allowing this love to pass through, and not kind of contracting herself and, coming from a place of fear or something like that?
So first off, if again you're in physical harm, you of course get up and you leave. Number one, 100% of the time. You don't try to talk that person into changing their behavior or anything. Under those circumstances, if you are feeling If you are feeling unsafe, you leave. Number two, when I talk about love coming in and going out, what I want you to remember also is that the most important aspect of that love is your love for yourself. It's your willingness to do what it takes, number one, to make yourself safe, and number two, to only put yourself in positions where you will experience what it is that your heart is yearning for. So this climbing of a vibration happens. It starts immediately when you remove yourself from the situation. If what you have experienced particularly has been a pattern of that person, number one, it's not your job to change them. Number two, it's not your job to try to help them to heal or to see the light. Number three, it is not your job to hang around and wait to see if it happens. And I'm talking about patterns that have harmed you over and over and over again. So the moment you remove yourself from the situation and you accept the fact this just isn't working for me, you have taken a giant leap into the energy frequency of self-love. Self-love is always going to be uncomfortable because you're taking yourself out of patterns that you've been comfortable in, and you go into now a whole new world, and the newness of it may feel uncomfortable. But it's here, once you've removed yourself from that situation, where you can come back inside into yourself. And rather than beating yourself up over having been in that situation or been in that relationship, no matter how long it has taken, you start to somewhat celebrate yourself and say, whew, I'm so happy. I recognize that. And all of these things start to create a brand new energy. And that energy is now going out into the universe, searching out other energy just like itself. So the more focus that you put on what you want instead, the faster it will come back to you. And it'll start showing up. In your other relationships, people will start to treat you differently. It'll show up in opportunities. It'll show up in conversations. It'll show up in new interests. And it'll also show up with new people coming into your life. And I can't emphasize enough how important this is. And you might say, well, what if that person did have the potential to heal, to change? Maybe I just needed to learn how to say it differently, or maybe when they saw that I left, they would come back and all of that. If that were the truth, it would happen already. It would happen already. So in essence, what you're doing is you're putting your focus on what you want rather than trying to change something that is already what you don't want and trying to make it better. It's like that old adage, where, how does it go? You can't beat an old horse to death and expect it to get up and give you a ride. And this is kind of that same thing. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, what you're saying is really, really interesting. And, I like the direction that you're going with it. One of the things that we teach in like relationship communication is around focusing on what you want and just communicating that, because so many people get caught up in blame games. They get caught up in, you did this and this happened and you made me feel this way and all these different things. And when you focus on like just getting into what it is that you want instead of blaming everybody and all that kind of stuff, you can kind of let go of all of the negativity. The other person doesn't feel attacked or threatened, and you can just get to the essence of of what would actually make you guys come together and make you happy and feel fulfilled and feel loved, right? Because now you're just focusing on that instead of all these other things, instead of being caught up in the fear and in, what you're talking about, which is, trying to turn something that is a certain way into being something else, right? It's like the ultimate not accepting reality for the way that it is and wishing that it was something different, trying to make it something that it's not, you know. And we're saying this in terms of people, and it's really easy to get caught up in that. And a lot of people are trying to change people all over the place. And most people out there, they don't want to change, right? Even you, like if a guy came up to you and he was like, "Hey, you know what? You're great, but let's change you in all these different ways." How would you feel about that? Right? You'd be like, "Get lost. I want somebody who's going to accept me for who I am, love me for who I am. Sure, I want to grow and develop myself into the best human that I can be. And at the same time, I don't want to go into a situation where immediately I'm the problem and I need to change." Right? That's just not a situation that most people want to go into, right? And it can feel bad because you have all these emotions wrapped around something. You have these emotions are wrapped around a person, or your interactions with somebody. Maybe you're trauma bonded, or you're in love, or maybe you're married, and you're trying to make things work, and you wish that things were different, and so you think, maybe if I could just change them, we could fix everything. If I could just change them, we could fix everything. But usually it doesn't work that way. And if you focus on what it is that you want, you're more likely to change your own situation to the situation that you want to have, regardless of whether it has to do with this person or not, right? And so I love the way that you're talking about that, Marcy, and kind of opening things up to that.
Yeah, and I love this direction too, because now we can differentiate that energy. So, it's so important. Everything you said, Matt, is so right on. You cannot change another person. But let's say you decide, okay, this isn't working for me, but I'm not, I have to try to figure out like what it is that I can do. Number one, the moment, as I said, that you start to focus on what it is that you want to experience, the universe is going to match it. But something really important happens too, because we know that energy is always attracting other energy just like itself. What's going to happen is that you're going to be granted from this fairy godmother the gift of clarity. Because as you are building this energy within yourself and you are committed to making certain that that is the energy that you are feeding, you will see very clearly whether or not that partner has the capability, the potential to meet you where you are. It'll become so clear. And then, of course, you'll know what actions to take. So it's not this one-time thing. We're in constant communication energetically. And when we just stick to the principles, like Matt was saying, just stick to that principle, right? Of energy is always seeking out other energy just like itself. Okay, that means I have to put my focus on what I want. I'm no longer going to feed this hope hook that something's going to happen. As you are feeding and creating this greater energy mass of what you want, you'll see whether or not that person can meet you. And the foundation of any relationship must be two people where the energies are aligned. They don't have to look the same. They can have different ideas, different ways of doing things, dress differently, want different foods, all of that. But energetically, the alignment has to be there. That's what creates the strongest foundation for a sustainable relationship. And that's where you want to put your energy.
Beautiful. If you're here with us right now, and you get what we're talking about here, go ahead and in the chat say, I get it. If you don't get what we're talking about, go ahead and ask us any questions that you might have about your situation or the things that we're talking about right now. So we have lots of people coming in from New Jersey, Georgia, Poland. Someone says, loving these live streams. Thank you for doing them. You're welcome. We have someone from Zagreb, Dubai, UK, Norway, all over the world. It's cool. So FT9889 says, how do you protect yourself from picking a man who first presents himself as the right one, only to switch on you and start abusing you later, especially toxic men? It's a great question.
Oh, it's such a fabulous question. And I'm just going to say right off the top, the best protection, and in truth, the only protection, once you get the hang of this, is to keep raising your vibrational frequency. Energy is always going to seek out other energy just like itself. As you raise your vibration, the only match that you're going to bring in is someone of the same vibrational frequency. So this is also where those nuances and knowing energy and how it works is really important. So this is where you start to pay attention to who you are. Everything begins with you. You're the one sending the energy out. You're the one who's going to receive the energy back. So if, let's say, that person shows up and, like you said, they look to be the right person, everything is going great, and then they end up being abusive, it tells me that you have tentacles, unhealed tentacles from your previous abusive relationship. It means that those tentacles of energy are still alive and they're being fed in some way. Maybe that feeding starts to happen when this person starts becoming abusive, but in most cases, it's actually in some way that you're abusing yourself, some way that you're neglecting yourself, some way, oh, I just got God bumps, some way that you are betraying yourself. So we just look at what has shown up. You don't beat yourself up. You say, oh, that's interesting. And you say, wow, where did that come in? And I'm telling you, it's absolutely the most incredible thing. You typically don't have to look back very far to see, oh yeah, I was betraying myself there. I was not authentic. And that was kind of abusive to myself. I wasn't showing up for myself in the way that I needed to. And I also want you to remember that that energy of abuse and trauma is very powerful. Very often it has been a repetitive pattern. So the energy is like a bank account, you might say. And there have been a lot of deposits there. So the most important thing is that you remind yourself that you're on a healing journey and you're doing a great job. And you're working, night and day, essentially, to keep raising your vibration. And if that little stinker sticks its head in there, not to worry. Love yourself enough. Once again, bam, pivot, move out of that situation. And don't allow yourself to get sucked back in thinking, oh, this feels very familiar. This must be true love.
Yeah, for sure. Just to kind of parrot what Marcy was saying right there, if you don't change the way that you feel about yourself, the way that you see yourself, the way that you see what you deserve, and how you feel what you deserve, you're just going to get back into the same kinds of situations over and over and over again. And it doesn't matter who shows up, because a perfectly healthy, amazing, awesome guy will show up and you're going to be repelled by him. And a toxic, manipulative, horrible guy is going to show up and you're going to be highly attracted to him, right? And that's just what's going to happen, right? Until you shift what's going on inside,
Right.
you're going to keep being drawn to and attracting and moving towards things that you don't actually want on the outside. And so it's very important that you shift what's going on inside.
Yeah.
I will give you some quick practical stuff real quick, since you're asking this question about it and it's relevant. One of the big things that we talk about is this idea of character, right? And people's character. And when I talk about character, what I'm talking about is how good of a relationship partner somebody is, right? That's what I mean when I say character. And the thing about character is that you don't learn someone's character just by the good times, right? Like if a guy's really bad during the good times, obviously he sucks and you don't want to be around him, right? But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about guys who will put up a good front, right? And they put up a good front and they'll try to do it for a long time. The way that you find somebody's character is how they respond and how they act during challenging times, during times when they're not getting their way, during times when they want something and it's too difficult for them to reach, right? When they're pressed by something where they don't know how to do something. That's when you start seeing somebody's real character come out, right? And so when you're dating somebody, it's important to know that, right? And be aware that during good times, everybody's happy, right? When everything's great, everybody's dancing around, everything's great, but challenging things might come up, right? This guy might try to do something that you're not comfortable with, right? How does he respond to being told no, right? Being told that you're not, you don't want to totally, reject the guy, but, letting him know that he, that's not appropriate, or that's not something that you want to do right now, or you don't know him well enough for that yet, or whatever it is, right? He will respond. Or another one is, let's say you go out somewhere and let's say you go dancing, right? Let's say you go swing dancing. Swing dancing is one of my favorite things. And you go swing dancing.
Great, by the way.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And you go swing dancing and he doesn't know how to swing dance, right? How does he deal with this situation? Does he get angry? Does he start blaming you? Does he laugh it off, right? Like you're seeing a little bit of this person's character during challenging things for him. It doesn't have to be, life-threatening crisis or whatever that comes up, but challenging things will come up. And that's why you look at the little details, right? And the other thing is that people are jumping into relationships way too quickly these days. They're just jumping in head first, right? They like meet each other, like it's very, very common right now to hook up with somebody within the first couple dates of meeting them. My suggestion is that you stay celibate completely. Don't sleep with anybody outside. Don't sleep with anybody outside of a relationship, right? Take time to get to know people and be friends with them first, right? And spend time getting to know them. That way you're not getting overly emotionally invested because you hooked up and now you're attached and, and you're not thinking clearly anymore and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I've got lots of advice around that. But, those are some general things.
And it's all great advice. And, really what you're saying is that there is evidence under every circumstance as to whether or not that person is a good match for you. And it can be something as simple as how they treat the waiter that comes to the table. Remember, if you're on a first date with somebody or your first meeting, in most cases, they're on their best behavior. Pay attention to how they treat other people. Pay attention to how attentively they are listening to you, asking questions about you, and pay attention to how attentive you can stay with them. Mm-hmm. That's also a very powerful telling part of the conversation. Do you find your mind wandering? Do you find yourself going back into a memory or being distracted? Pay attention to how you are reacting mentally, physically, psychologically, emotionally, but mostly energetically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Powerful
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yep. And the more present and conscious you can be about all this stuff, the easier it'll be. The more you tune yourself to your intuition, the easier this will be. And so yeah, I mean, like what we were talking about earlier, if you don't shift what's going on the inside, all the techniques and tactics and stuff to find all the right things, none of them will matter because you're still going to be drawn to the wrong people.
That's right.
And so, okay, Rasha says, hello, hello, Matthew, you're one of the best coaches. Thank you for all your advice. Say hi to Marcy. I will say hi to Marcy.
Just hello. Thank you.
Amy says, what if you are attempting to break trauma bonds after leaving a 17-year relationship and also trying to do healthy co-parenting with my abuser?
Yeah, it's a huge question. Number one, I want to emphasize how important it is that you get support. And trauma, as I said, is a powerful energy. And you have patterned so much of your life to respond to it. In fact, I will even say that how you see yourself, how you define yourself, has actually been molded by those traumatic experiences, because something inside of you, as I said before, found it to be familiar, which of course in a 17-year relationship that's filled with trauma and abuse, it becomes very familiar. But it also starts to create these patterns and patterns of behavior where, particularly if you are neglected in other ways, inadvertently, you'll start to invite that abuse. You'll start to invite more of the traumatic exchanges because the energy is so powerful and it needs to be fed. This is why going into a support program is absolutely essential for you. And again, I recommend that you learn as much about energy as possible, because it will be the key to you being able to create a happy and a healthy life, and then happy and healthy relationships. But it all has to start with you. And there are energy pockets, which again will draw to them energy just like itself, because it must be fed. So even though you're out of the relationship and it's not necessarily getting fed the way it used to, that energy has an insatiable appetite. And it is why the patterns repeat over and over and over again. And so what going into a program will do, it will help to build a greater energy that has now the potential to create that happiness and that health that is so essential to your well-being. So that's where the focus needs to be. The other thing with trauma is that, and you say you're co-parenting, trauma and the patterns of behavior that were created during it will also be patterns that your children will associate with. So you may really start to pay attention to how they're showing up, their patterns, their fears, what they're doing to get attention, what they're doing to get the love that everyone needs. And if they need help, to get them help.
I just want to say something else around this real quick, and that is, just to have patience with yourself. You went through 17 years of, a relationship, and so there's a lot of patterns. There's a lot of um, emotions. There's a lot of connection. There's a lot of attachment that's been there for a very, very long time, and after such a long time, it can feel like you want to go back to that, or that you miss part of it, or that there's parts of it that are hard to heal from or let go of. And so just make sure you're having patience with yourself, and just continue to move forward. And if you slip up or you do something that maybe you feel like you don't want to do anymore, or that's getting you sucked back in, or whatever, just have some leeway for yourself, and some forgiveness for yourself, and some patience with yourself, and just continue to move forward, continue to kind of break free of that bond, continue to build yourself up and make a shift. There's usually a point that I found for most people where it's kind of like it's kind of like a liftoff point where there's the metaphor is, like a rocket ship shooting up into the sky, and there's a certain point where the Earth's gravity isn't pulling it down as hard anymore, and it's kind of taking off and just kind of moving forward. And there's a certain point like that with all of us with trauma, right? There's a point where it's easier than it is harder anymore, right? And what you want to do is just keep going until you hit that point where I call it the wholeness break point. And it's this place where you're starting to feel whole. You're starting to feel like you don't need something that used to suck you back in, that used to pull you back into it. There's a lot of things that can be said about your situation with, co-parenting with an abusive person. I mean, it's such a huge topic that we could have a multi-day workshop on it. So I'll just leave you with that for right now, Amy.
And I would just like to add one thing, and that is how amazing you are, that you were able to get yourself out of that relationship and have crossed that threshold where you are living separately. That's huge, and a huge leap, again, of self-love. It's beautiful. And thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. We got more people saying where they're from, saying hello. Majestic Jewel says, what can you say about narcissists? Well,
yeah. Number
there's
one,
so many things to be said about narcissists.
Yeah. Tune into I think last program we did, right? We were talking about narcissism. But what can you say about it? I mean, like,
let me say something real quick about it. First off, don't try to change narcissists. Don't want to do that. Doesn't work out well. Right. There's a lot of reasons why they are the person that they are. And if they want to do some changing, maybe they can do some changing. You're not here to fix them or change them. That's not going to work. Narcissism is usually built up by having a really, really, really high ego, right? And having the inability to feel okay and comfortable with themselves. And so what they do is they have this constant, never-ending need for validation and feeling good about themselves that they get from other people by treating them like they are, objects for their own, to feed their own emotions. And so there's different sides, right? There's two sides to everything, and there's always extremes, right? One side is like this narcissistic thing where it's like high ego, right? And then the other side is like deep empath, right? And the empathic side is a much more noble side, right? Because when you get to the extreme of empathy that a lot of people have, sometimes what people end up doing is they give themselves totally for something, and it ends up destroying them. But they don't care because it's not about them, right? Which is why it sounds and feels a lot more noble, right? It's like you're giving yourself for this person or these people or whatever, but it can be at the cost of yourself, right? Everything in yourself. And so if you're in that space, right, which is what narcissists tend to feed on, right? Not always, but a lot of times narcissists will feed on people who are like deep empaths because they'll let them, right? And a lot of times they'll end up getting into relationships there. And so one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you're not completely sacrificing yourself for a relationship or anything. It's important to have your own space. It's important to be your own person. It's important to have your own desires, your own things that you're working on, the things that you care about in your life, so you don't end up getting so sucked in and giving yourself to somebody that you're completely losing yourself in the process. I don't know why that came up for me, but it's something that just came up, and I just wanted to mention it. Is there anything else you wanted to say about narcissists, Marcy?
Yeah, no, unless there's a specific question, it's hard. Like you said, it's such a broad topic, but I think, you did a great job, Matt, of, just giving the example that, and the reminder, not your job to fix, to heal, to lead, to try to change them. Yeah, your job is to start creating what it is that you want to experience in this world, because that is what you deserve.
Absolutely. Talina says, this is going back to the conversation earlier, so I don't have to set boundaries. That's what she said. So I don't have to set boundaries?
Yeah.
You want me to take that, or you want to?
I'll just jump in. And I know that this is such a controversial subject. I've had so many, conversations about this. But again, I look at everything from an energetic place, and I understand, number one, I read energy. So I'm always seeing the impact of that whole mindset about boundaries. The impact is actually self-sabotaging. We are meant to live in our heart. And so the difference between a heart set and a mindset is that the mind, remember, is 97% controlled by the ego. The ego is fear itself. So it keeps you in this belief system, and it's very creative. So that system is quite broad. And it keeps you in the system where you are believing that you need to protect yourself, right? We're fearful. So the ego just keeps playing that. It's like a record, right? It goes over and over and over again. And so the mindset is the playground of the ego. The heart set is the truth of your being, and it's where you are connected to the very fiber of love that has created the entire universe, including you. So your first language, number one, is energy. You're an energy being. Number two, that energy is love. So we have to retrain ourselves to come back and say, okay, what does the heart say? The heart says it just wants to breathe in and out, in and out. But it also wants to create. And so we keep like shoveling in whatever is going to fuel that ability to create. And that is how we raise our vibrational frequency. Now, sometimes what we're shoveling in are the things that are no longer serving us, like being in an abusive relationship. We can shovel all of that energy actually into the heart. And you might be saying, what? You don't want that crap in your heart. That again, that's the mind. The heart knows exactly what every energetic frequency needs in order to transform and transmute that energy. Energy always wants to be free. It does not want to be tethered, certainly, to anything that's fearful, because it's like wearing cement shoes. So when we start to allow ourselves to come into these concepts where our true nature now has an opportunity to show itself and to create, you're talking living in two completely different worlds. One that's based in fear, one that's based in love, and love becomes your protective mechanism because you become so finely tuned, you recognize immediately when something is out of alignment. I'm going to give you a little example. So this was a while back, and somebody had tried to set me up with this guy, and I was invited to a dinner party. And of course, they sit me right next to him, and they think, oh, they're such a great match. He does all of these, wonderful things for homeless and this and that. And all it took was 5 minutes of a conversation where I started to recognize that what was on the outside did not match what was on the inside. 5 minutes, that was it. And this is how clear we can get. Because the truth is, I felt it energetically even before I heard it. And this is what we want for you, to be able to pick up on the energetic nuances, number one, and what does that mean? What does it signify? Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, Marcy, when you listen to Marcy, she's definitely a little bit further down the woo scale than I am.
We call it woo, but it's just, this is who we are.
Yeah, no, totally. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because what she's saying, when you think about it, it matches a lot of what I talk about as well. It's
Yeah.
just said in a different way and kind of felt in a different way. And when we're talking about like, your boundaries and stuff, what what we should be doing instead, or what works better instead, what we're really talking about is like getting in alignment with what it is that you want. Right.
Yeah.
And getting clear on what it is that you want, because the clearer you are on what it is that you want, and the more that you are in alignment with that, from an emotional standpoint, from a mental standpoint, emotional is the most important, because if you get there emotionally, it'll align everything else. But you want to do it from an emotional standpoint, a physical standpoint, a logical standpoint. And when you align with what it is that you want, what you need to do in those situations becomes very clear, right? We can give you specific things that you need to do, but we could nitpick those specific things to death. And you're going to be like, oh, but what about this particular situation that's totally different than those situations? And it's like when you're coming from the right place and you're connected to what it is that you really want, and you're in alignment with that, what needs to happen becomes very clear, and what you need to do becomes very clear. And then you can walk that path of what you need to do a lot more effectively, right? And what we're saying is, and what Marcy's saying is, that you want to stay away from that energy of fear. Stay away from that energy of, I'm just, in this little bubble trying to protect myself. If you need to be in that, because that's the only place you've ever been, or you're in a situation where it's so threatening to you, the perception of it's so threatening to you that you feel like you need to go into that, that's fine, right? Go into that. But if you really want to attract what you want, if you really want to know how to deal with situations without, scripting everything out and nitpicking everything out, then you need to get into alignment with what it is that you want. And the way that you do that is emotionally and getting connected with, your desires, your goals, what you want, and getting that into your body, getting that into your heart, getting that into your nervous system. And when you do that, it's a lot easier to just, do everything that you need to do. And it becomes very, very clear.
Yeah. So well said, Matt. And, the emotional journey is really the path because, and this is a bit of a paradox. So, what happens is when you start to pay attention to your emotions, it's going to, excuse me, it actually will lead you to a feeling. Okay. Until you reach this point where the feeling starts coming first. And what do I mean by that? It's a sensation. A feeling is a sensation. And the emotion that you feel is a reaction. It's a reaction to the experience that you're in. But in most cases, it's also based on other experiences that you've had historically, and you have the same emotional reaction. But they tell you so much about you, and then you can choose from there which direction you want to go. But this emotional journey is one where, number one, we start to value our emotions. And like I said, they're accompanied with feelings. So when you start to make those distinctions, you really are starting to know yourself so well. But what happens when you have an emotional reaction? There are clear signals in that emotional reaction about what you should do. Matt talked about clarity. I spoke about clarity before and how important that is. So one of the issues that I have found in working with people is they're so afraid of their emotions. And it's the most powerful piece of information that we have. So we don't shun them. We just also are cognizant, we're aware of what they're telling us. Because some emotion is meant to be followed and some is meant to be released so that it's not going to be followed. It's not going to determine your path forward. And this is where the nuances really start to come in. And like I said, from that place, you can create anything. It's all in the awareness. And we go back then to that place where we started, Matt, right? Talking about how do you protect yourself? Your greatest ability to protect yourself is your awareness. Being aware. What am I feeling? What are the sensations? What are the emotional reactions? And what are my thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. Love it. Love how you explained that, Marcy. So we have somebody else here, Katrina, who's saying, how do you love yourself after you lost yourself in abusive marriage, now divorced and can't move forward?
Number one, the fact that you're out of it is a huge leap of self-love. Number two, remind yourself, and I use this all the time, that was then and this is now. You attracted that relationship. You went into that relationship based on who you used to be. That's not who you are now. And this may cause some rub, but that relationship served you in some way. Okay? It either, took care of whatever that need was that caused you to go into it, and it became saturated. You no longer have the need. Or what happened was you developed an incredible knowingness, deep wisdom, clarity, strength, and the courage. One thing I can say is that when you are on the other side of an abusive relationship, and I can raise my hand, you recognize the courage that you cultivated during that relationship to finally show up for yourself. You crossed over the threshold. It took tremendous courage. It took tremendous strength. And here you are. And now, I don't know how long it's been since you've been out of it, but you're now in a healing mode. It's where you have the opportunity to close up those needs. If there's anything that is kind of lingering or whatever, this is where the healing takes place. We let go of any of the energy of it. It's no longer serving us. We, for lack of a better way to explain this, we learned all the lessons that we were meant to. It brought us to who we are today, where we are. And trust me, you are well on your way to a brand new life because you are brand new. Yeah, you might still have some wounds. I get it. And they will heal and you'll get the healing. But you're ready. You're ready for the new life because you chose it already.
Yeah, totally true. I feel you on that one, Marcy. And, just sitting into that and sitting into this truth that is that, you can move forward, right? You are moving forward. You have moved forward.
That's right.
And so you're going to continue to move forward. You just have some things that are lingering that are, old kind of belief systems, old feelings, old things that are, it's natural to have because you're in a marriage for a very long time, right? And it's natural for things to come back up that try to pull you back, and it's okay for those things to come up. It's okay for doubts to come up. It's okay for you to feel like you can't move forward and all these things. Just let it come. And when it does come, just thank it for its, support. Thank it for, trying to take care of you and protect you, and say, I appreciate everything that you've given me and all of the wisdom and need to protect me that you've done so far, and I don't need you anymore. I'm moving forward. I'm stepping into this place where I can move forward. I'm stepping into this place where I'm powerful and I'm strong and I'm worthy of, feeling my own love. I'm worthy of connecting to myself and having a beautiful and amazing life. And I'm going to create that for myself. But thank you. I'm letting go and I'm moving forward and I'm stepping into the life that I'm destined for.
That's right. And how courageous you are. Bravo, really.
Absolutely. Nanette says, I get it. Recently discovered you, Matt. Love everything you share. Well, you love every single thing I share. I hope you're liking every single post of mine. Just kidding. Yeah, I appreciate you. Appreciate you being here. Lots of people from all over, people that get it. Catalia says, how do you raise your vibrational energy? I'll throw that off to you, Marcy, since you're this vibrational energy.
Thank you so much. And thank you for asking the question. And the first thing I want you to know is that it is unique to each of you. So part of what we're meant to do here in this world is to really learn about ourselves so that we can create the life that is going to serve us and support us and just create this incredible foundation for us to just be the most expansive being. So that means that the more you pay attention to you, what you're feeling, how you're reacting and what you're thinking, you will know, number one, what starts to feel good. The things that feel good to us will raise our vibrational frequency. These do not come from mind-altering things. In other words, it is, let's say, for instance, that you're driving down the street and the sun just, streams through the trees and you feel, like this expansiveness. That's it. What that is actually a message, you might say, from your higher self that says, find more of this. You hear a song that's got your foot tapping, you find yourself singing at the top of your lungs. That's your higher self saying, do more of that. You come across something that you've been reading, and when you read it, you start to understand maybe certain universal laws or spiritual practices that just really resonate. Or you find when you're with certain friends, you love where the conversation goes. They're not men bashing, they're not complaining, they're not, catty and gossiping. But you've got friends that are nurturing and nourishing you, and your conversations light you on fire. Do more of that. Find things that you read. Stay away from violence. Stay away from anything that has you in a stress, anxiety situation. For instance, I was sitting next to my son. He was watching this program, and I just went in to sit down next to him. And he's watching something, and I can feel my heart racing. I'm anxious, I'm nervous. And he looks over at me and he says, Mom, this isn't real, right? Well, I started to laugh, but the truth of the matter is our brain believes that everything it sees is real. Don't watch violent films. Don't watch or read things where you feel your body physically reacting to it. Raising your vibration is feeding it, giving it fuel of high vibration things. Food that you feel great when you eat it. And this is all part of your journey. It's the journey of intimacy. Into me, see, and take notes, so that if you're feeling down, you have a whole file of things that you've experienced where you recognized your heart was singing, you felt elevated, and you felt like you wanted to do more of it. That's how simple it can be. Do you like being in nature? Go out in nature. You like being at the beach? Go to the beach. Water is a wonderful, wonderful place for us to, whether you're submerged, whether you're in the shower, just let it just flow right through you, and take with it whatever you don't need anymore.
Yeah, that's beautiful. When I was in college, university, I had a friend. He was a mutual friend of ours. His name's Max Mendoza. And one time he came up to me and he was like, Matt, he's like, tell me, what do you think? Do you think life is about finding yourself, or do you think life is about like creating yourself? And I was like, at the time, I was like, I was kind of in the like whole like go after it and create things. So I was like, it's about creating yourself, but I've thought about this question a lot over the last 10 years or so. And what's really come up for me with it is that I think it's a little bit of both. I think that it's about getting in touch with who you really are, letting go of all the things that you picked up, right? We pick up things throughout our entire lives, right? That aren't really us, that aren't really in tune with who we are. We pick up patterns, we pick up behaviors, we pick up, speech, we pick up all kinds of things, relationships, friendships, all kinds of things that aren't in alignment with who we are. Part of that's letting go of all of that, right? It's letting go of all these things that don't really line up with who we really are. And I think on the other side of it is the thing that we've been talking about a lot lately, which is this whole thing with what you desire, right? It's the creating yourself part, which is saying, hey, what is it that I want? When you start aligning both of those things together, it becomes this magical, beautiful thing that you've never experienced before in your life. That is just, I mean, it'll attract and bring into your world things that you couldn't even imagine, right? And suddenly you go from this place where you're struggling and everything's difficult, and how do I find this stuff, and how do I do this? And all of a sudden things start just showing up. The right things just start showing up. They come into your attention. You see them, you seek them out without even knowing it. Something shows up and you're like, oh, that must be right, right? Because you start, it's like the universe delivers, God delivers, what you're looking for when you're on your path, right? When you're really walking your destiny. And I think it's both sides that you need to kind of connect with in order to raise your, we're talking about raising your vibration.
Raising your vibration. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to add one thing to that. And I love everything you said, Matt. And there was a study recently, and I wish I could remember where it came from, but the question was, what is the most powerful energy of the universe? And, the majority of people answered love. Love is the most powerful energy of the universe. And the truth was, when they were measuring vibrational frequencies, there was actually one above it, and that was authenticity. And the moment I heard that made perfect sense to me, because love is already what you are, who you are. You can't get away from it. But there's nothing more powerful when you step into who you really are. And this radical acceptance, oh yeah, I am that energy of love. I do have the capability of creating anything through me. And you let go of everything Matt was just saying, all that stuff that you've picked up, the patterns that we've been talking about, the distortions, the need to, heal this wound or that wound. When you let go and you can show up as who you really are, what you really are, you've let go of all of the roles, the expectations of others, the criteria that others have placed upon you. You literally show up as the God that's within you. You show up as your own divinity. And that's why it's so powerful. So that's what we strive for. We all, how many times have you heard, Matt, or thought to yourself, I just want someone to love me for who I am? The only way that's going to happen is for you to be who you are.
That's right. That's right. It's the only way. It's the only way it's going to happen.
It can happen.
It seems so simple, doesn't it, Marcy?
Yeah, yeah. So the more you know about yourself, when you're putting a mask on, when you're pretending, when you're waiting to hear what the other person says before you respond, when you, look for the fashion magazines to tell you, what to wear rather than what feels good. Whenever you are acquiescing your power, you're giving it over to something or someone who has no freaking idea what's best for you. But you do. And that higher place within you, that higher sense of you, that higher self knows exactly what you need. And when we just surrender to that and we allow it to live through us, we get to live the most incredible lives. And I can't emphasize that enough. And when you start to really pay attention, like Matt was just saying, different things and people will start to come into your life. Yeah. And that's your evidence. And it's all the evidence that you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And, letting go of your desire to control everything and that you need to do everything, right? When you do that, you'll start noticing that things start happening for you.
That's right.
It's a beautiful, amazing place to be. Marcy, do you have some more time to take a couple more questions?
Absolutely. I could do this all day. This is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, we literally, I think there must be hundreds of questions and comments here. So we'll try to go through as many as we can. Let's see. Lots of people. Good evening. Energy from both sides. Doop 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 doo. Candace says my husband's name is Matthew as well, and he is toxic. All right. Well, you know what? Not every Matthew is amazingly, healthy and awesome as I am.
That's right.
Let's see here.
And hopefully you'll be saying my former husband.
Right.
Soon.
Let's see. Louisiana. Steph says, "Can someone help me cut my tentacles off?" What you can do. So this is the thing Marcy was talking before about, like, programs, right? And one of the most powerful things you can do is get into an environment that supports your growth and your movements towards raising your vibrational frequency, getting into alignment with what it is that you want, helping you heal, giving you tools and things to kind of move forward. It's one of the most powerful things that you can do, right? Because one of the things, we keep talking about these narcissists and why narcissists don't change or whatever. I personally believe that they can change, but the probability of them changing is almost non-existent. And the probability of you changing them is even less existent. And one of the reasons is because they have set up their life to support and reinforce their current behaviors and methods, right? And so if and it's the same with all of us, right? Like, most people don't, I was talking in, I think it was the last live stream, most people change, right? We're constantly changing, but most people are changing back into the same thing that they were before because their environment supports that. The things that are around them support that, their habits support that, right? Marcy was talking about, like, not watching, like, scary movies or whatever. Most people are addicted to social media. And what social media does is, not only does it hit your dopamine receptors and keep you addicted, but it also feeds you the same stuff that you're constantly watching, right? So, or looking at. So if you go on to Facebook or X or whatever, and you start looking at political stuff, your feed is going to be flooded with political stuff, and it's going to get you riled up and angry and all these different things, right? We used to have this saying where we're like, turn off your TV, right? TV is nothing compared to how destructive social media can be to your mindset and your emotions and your heart, right? And so it's important that if you do use social media, that you use it in a constructive way. And that my suggestion is that if you want to have some boundaries around social media. Okay, because social media can, like, really mess you up in terms of your mentality and stuff. And so getting back to your question, the best thing that you can do, in my opinion, is to get into an environment that supports you and helps you grow and helps you become the person that you want to be, helps you heal, helps you do whatever it is that you feel you need support in at the moment. Do you want to say anything to that, Marcy?
Just that you don't ever want to cut anything. that's surface level. You always want to go where the roots of that began. And so just to sort of piggyback on what Matt was saying is that, number one, make choices that are no longer feeding that energy. Make choices that are feeding the energy that has the capability of creating what you want instead. But that whole concept about cutting cords, the issue with that is that the roots are still there. So we must go into a deeper place. And that's where the healing actually takes place. Which is why you need a community, the way Matt was describing. You need to be reinforced. You need to be supported.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And especially if your current environment doesn't do that, which most people's don't.
That's right.
So we have Faju Janu, who says women can be toxic too, not just men. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody can be toxic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes people are like, oh, Matt's, like a man hater and he just, just is pro woman or whatever. I'm not actually. I am pro healthy relationships. I am pro healing. I am pro healthy society. That's what I am. That's what I support. Anybody can be toxic. And there's problems that come from everybody. My audience tends to be women because that's what I've been working with for the last, 12 years of my life at this point. So, but yeah.
I would actually like to mention something about that because it's brought up this conversation I was having with a friend. This was many, many years ago. I was newly divorced and I was having dinner with a friend and her fiance. And he kept trying to, fix me up with all these people. And I just knew every time he would bring somebody else, the feeling I had was not for me. Anyway, so he was just so frustrated. Marcy, what are you looking for? And I just went, bam, 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 bam. And, the two of them started laughing at the dinner table. And I could feel this, embarrassment, this sort of humiliation rising up. They were laughing at me. And then my friend said, Marcy, that's ridiculous. It's impossible. You'll never find someone like that. And I was just quiet for a moment. And I said, well, if I can be all those things, why would I not expect a man to be able to be that? And then they were silent. And in that moment, I realized that, and of course, I was privy to the sort of the background of some of the relationship, that both of them had really settled for the relationship that they were in. And so this is what, I want you to take in. Keep working to be that best, greatest, most expansive expression of you, the pure version, most authentic version of you is really not just what the world is waiting for, but that is how your true love will find you. The more authentic that you can be, the faster that happens. And so I want you to know, like, Matt is like the epitome in a lot of ways, because Matt just courageously did exactly what you're doing, right? He's listening, he's working, he's, not afraid to see himself and what, is calling to be shifted so that he can have, something more beautiful. And that's really what we're saying. Do it for yourself, and you will attract to you someone who has done it for themselves. Because for you to do all of this and then, turn towards someone who has done none of it, chances are, if they are not living that self-reflective life, you'll have difficulty in communicating at some point. So what you're doing is for the benefit of every day that's in your future. Just by being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a woman on Instagram. I can't pull up the Instagram stuff, but there was this woman on Instagram that was saying, oh, like how many people are, high vibrational people, if I, become high vibrational, am I going to be like alone or whatever? And it's like, here's what I would like to say to this, because I always get these comments where women are like, oh well, like most guys, or like most of the men out there or whatever. You're not looking for most men, right?
No,
Let's just start that out, right?
Yeah.
Like most men are not your man.
That's
right?
right.
Most of the people out there are not your people, right? There's a small percentage of people that you would even get along with anyway, right? Is that percentage smaller when you raise your vibration? Sure, right? But it's a much better relationship, right? When you do get with those people, when you do connect with people that are, open and free and connected to source, and, it's so powerful, and it's so worth it. So it's yeah, absolutely. And Peggy says, where do I find these programs? It's a great question. We've got programs. We're going to be building. We're going to be building a new program. We were just talking about this actually right before the call, but we're going to be building a new program. Just for healing work, just for alignment, just for raising your vibration. And it's going to be really, really powerful. But yeah, there's programs out there. Some are in person, some are online. But yeah, just stay tuned if you want to know more about our program.
That's right. It's coming up. And in the meantime, I am a firm believer in a daily spiritual practice. And it doesn't matter to me what it is. What matters to me is that you intentionally put aside a certain amount of time. For me, it works great in the morning because the rest of the day and night I'm off doing other things. But putting aside, and it can be 10 minutes, but just 10 minutes, maybe where you're meditating or you're reading something inspirational. It could be reading anything at all that elevates you. And that's where you need to pay attention again. But that is a spiritual practice. And what that's doing is, number one, you're setting your vibrational frequency at a very high note. So just tune in for a minute and tell me what feels different. Getting out of bed angry and, PO'd that you have to do this, and this, or still ruminating about a conversation that happened yesterday or last week, and it really, pissed you off. So you wake up like that, or you wake up and you say, oh, I've got 15 minutes today. I'm going to read this. I'm going to meditate for a bit. And then I'm just going to listen to this music that came across my, inbox the other day, and I haven't had a chance. These are things that feed our spirit. Anything that feeds your spirit elevates your vibrational frequency.
Absolutely. And the more that you do it, the more that you don't even necessarily need to do it, right?
Yeah.
The more that you get in, that you have a spiritual practice, the more that you will find that your entire life is a spiritual practice.
100%, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more that you step into it, the more it starts to become like, wow, everything, right? Like I talk about relationships being a spiritual practice. Well, I believe that about everything. I believe that your health is a spiritual practice. Your finances are a spiritual practice. Your friendships are spiritual. Everything's a spiritual practice in your life when you get connected, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to feed yourself and start stepping into that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Namita says, is this still live? What do you think, Marcy? Is this still live?
Yes, it is. Yeah. This is still live.
FT9889 says, will removing yourself from toxic people immediately heal the toxic energetic pattern?
It depends on you. It depends on you. Everything depends on you. So if you immediately remove yourself from a toxic relationship, as I said before, you have already started to create a different trajectory for the energy. But here's what I want you to be careful of. Okay, what often happens is that and this is for everyone, what often happens is that when we leave a relationship that we have deemed to be toxic, we keep feeding the toxic energy by pointing fingers back at that person or at that relationship, where it's blaming, shaming, guilting, all of that. And this is really something to be very cautious of. You are actually feeding that toxic energy. Those energies are toxic. So regardless if you're trying to push them off on your former partner, or you think that, it's just about the relationship, you're ingesting them. So you're not just putting them out, they loop back and you ingest them. So when we step outside of a toxic relationship, the most important thing that you can do is to actually go into more of a cocoon, you might say, and start to nurture ourselves, nourish ourselves with only things that will help us to heal and help us to build up our energetic body that we have been sabotaging by staying there. This, I cannot emphasize this enough. This seems the absolute opposite of what we're supposed to do, right? And in fact, we often reinforce the whole toxicity of the relationship, because what do? Oh, we get all of our friends together and we talk about how horrible it was and what they did and blah, 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 feeding the toxic energy. You're literally like spooning it in, okay? And then what do? When that starts to dwindle, we call them back and we say, validate this, validate that. And we have them in on it too. Oh, remember when that happened? Remember when this happened? You are an energetic being. Just be cautious about the energy that you're feeding yourself. And anything that you're dishing out comes back to your dish.
Yeah. I want to say one thing about this, and it kind of relates to what Marcy was saying, and it's that it does depend, right? Everything depends on what's going on with you. It depends on where you're at. It depends on how much you stay kind of stuck in something and how much you don't, right? Like there's natural healing that occurs, but what happens a lot of times is that people will get caught up or stuck on they'll get stuck on like blame or anger or these different negative emotions that keep them caught up in this world, right? This world of pain, this world of different things that can actually make them toxic. Right? And so it's important that you shift, right? And that's one of the reasons why we keep talking about this, like focusing on what it is that you want, because when you don't focus on what it is that you want, I was reading a study that was saying something that naturally, if we don't start consciously focusing our minds, I think it was like 75% of the thoughts that we have are negative thoughts, right? They go to the negative. They just, if you don't decide who you're going to be, what it is that you want, where it is that you're moving, you'll just be taken by the river. You'll just go wherever the river is going to take you, right? But if you decide where you want to go, you get to decide, if you even want to stay in this river or not, or whether you want to get up and go somewhere else,
Yeah.
right? And most of the things that are going on around us, most of the things on social media, most things everywhere are taking you to a place that you probably don't want to go. Something that if you sat down and you were like, hey, what do I really want in my life? What do I really want to create? You probably wouldn't go, hey, I want to be negative. I want to, like blame this person. I want to be in resentment. I want to try to get revenge, like, I mean, everybody can be petty sometimes, right? And it can be feel kind of good, right? And your higher self, when you connect with your higher self, it's not going to want that. What it wants is to be free. What it wants is to create a great life for yourself. What it wants is to step into who you can become and what it is that makes you feel alive, right?
Yeah.
And those things don't make you feel alive, they keep you stuck.
Sure.
And
And
so
so important to recognize that you're meant to just forgive yourself for having put yourself in that situation. Forgive yourself for forgetting who you are. Forgive yourself for betraying yourself. Forgive yourself for sabotaging yourself. Whatever it is, when we recognize our agreement in being there, we can now, and I call this spiritual accountability. Now we can understand, well, if I agreed to be there and to experience all of that, then that means I can now agree to create something new. And so you actually make agreements with yourself to feed the energy of what you want to create, but you're also healing those parts of yourself that, for whatever reason, put yourself in that position. But at the end of the day, it's all good, because at the end of the day, you have come out of there a different person. You're no longer the person who walked into it. And so that needs to be recognized, because what that means is that, almost against all odds, you were still hearing the whisper of your higher self that said, follow me. And you did.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Let's see. I love that. Truth. Let's see. Okay. You know what? I think we're gonna wrap up things right now. So thank you everybody for being here with us. Thank you so much, Marcy, for sharing your wisdom and
Always
being a
my
part
joy.
of this. Yeah, we're gonna be doing this every week.
Yeah.
And like I said, look forward to the new community that we're going to be creating. If you left a comment or a question, I apologize for not getting it, but it just gives you more reason to come back and talk to us again. So
yeah. And also, for those of you who had questions about the narcissistic relationships, go back and listen to, I believe it was our last live stream, wasn't it, Matt? Where we talked about.
It was one of the last two. I think it was this. It doesn't matter. We did one recently about that, so you can go check that out. Specifically on YouTube, it's the easiest way to find that. And so, yeah, thanks again for everybody for being here. And wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a great day, great night, great evening. Is there any last parting words you want to say, Marcy?
No, just remember how powerful you are to actually create what it is that you want to experience, and don't let anyone tell you differently.
Absolutely. Beautiful.
Yeah.